Hi, I'm John Kriger from John Kriger Consulting. Today we're going to be talking about regaining equilibrium. How do you regain that life-work balance, regenerate it? Now, if you notice on the first slide here, what I have is I've got regenerate your life-work balance. That's not the way we normally say it. Normally what we say is regenerate your work-life balance. But think about that. One of the things that I like to think about, quite honestly, is putting life before work. Now, is work vitally important? Sure it is. But the thing is that we very often spend an awful lot of time focusing on our work and planning our work, but we really don't do, from my experience and just from the folks I've talked to, we very often don't do a very good job of planning life. So let's take a look at that and try to balance that out a little bit. One of the ways that I have found in in working with other individuals and just for myself is if developing lists can be very effective. Now, very often you have ideas of how you've made lists in the past. Some of you maybe are list makers, some of you are not. But one of the things that I would say to you is, to me, it's really important to keep lists in front of you. A list is an important thing because it really creates a map of from where you are to where you want to be. And it creates those steps in between. If you're going on a trip, you wouldn't go on a trip and just take your map out once, look at it and put it away and never to look at it again. Again, not unless it was something really quite simple in a short trip you were doing. But how important, again, think about how important life is. If you really want to get the most out of your lists, one of the things that I would say is we need to make them more effective. And that's why I have it underlined here. We need to make and develop more effective lists. So as we go into this, take a look at how I have this laid out. And I would love to hear your comments, your thoughts. If you have any feedback for me, I'm more than happy to take it. Or if you have any questions, please email me and I'll be happy to talk it over with you. But think about the idea here of making lists. And what I ask folks to do is take about 10 minutes and write down everything you can think of that you have to do. And this includes work and also your private life, your personal life, things that you have to take care of. Just little things. I have to go down to the store and pick up tomatoes for lunch, whatever it might be. But think about it. What's on your immediate list? And make a list of again, take about 10 minutes and just write a list up. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting because once you have that list compiled, what I want you to do is I want you to go through it and I want you to prioritize it, especially the top 10 items. Now, why are priorities important? Because you need to know what comes first. Right? There's that, the saying, first things first. Well, if we don't know what we have to do, how do we put first things first? We don't know what comes first. So think about this. Prioritize the top 10 items and then work your way down through your list. As much time as you want to take, put that time into it though, because what this will do is it'll begin to focus, it'll begin to narrow your point of view and make things more manageable for you. One of the things that I would say to you is that, and I find for myself, is that sometimes I get a little overwhelmed. I'm sure that you do too. And as I get overwhelmed, one of the things that happens to me is that I begin to almost panic a little bit in it. Where do I start? What am I going to do? What comes next? Whatever, just get lost in all the things we have to do. I hear that from lots of individuals I talk to, especially when I'm, talking to healthcare workers, school nurses, social workers. You guys are all busy and you have a lot to do. But the problem is that very often your needs are not incumbent upon what's important to you. They're incumbent upon what's important to other people. They're in meeting their needs. So you try to balance all of that together. So what happens is we tend to overcommit. We tend to take on more than we realistically should. We have trouble saying no. We often don't meet our own needs. And that's really what I'm addressing here. And I'm going to address that in the next couple of videos also, is how do we find ways to meet our own needs in the process of meeting all those other needs that are out there. Now, as we look at it, so you got your list, you've prioritized it, you've gone through and you've prioritized at least the top 10 and hopefully more than that. But once you get your top 10 figured out as to what's most important to do, and we'll even talk about that. How do we figure out what's most important? I want you next to note the top 3 items. What's your top 3? Now, there's a couple things to consider in this. Number one is when you're looking at what needs to be done, what's most important, I would say to you is if you can do something within 10 to 15 minutes, put it up on the top of the list. Make it one of those top 3 items. Because what that does for you is it takes those elements, it allows you to deal with them and get them out of the way, so then you can go on to other things. Very often in our lives, we accumulate all these little things that realistically, if we just did them, they'd be out of our way and we wouldn't have to worry about them. But a lot of times you don't have time, right? You're rushing around and you're trying to deal with everything and you can't deal with everything. So stuff tends to pile up behind you. It's kind of like being, I think about it all the time. I was talking to my granddaughter about this, about the whole idea of a wake, right? The wake behind a boat. If you're in a outboard motorboat, for instance, and you're running along and you got it opened up and all of a sudden you shut it down quick, that energy, that water behind you that's being pushed out comes back and fills in and can actually come into the back of the boat. That's the wake, right? That wake behind you can actually overwhelm you and flood you. Well, guess what happens to us? We put things off, and because we put things off, we're not dealing with them. And they tend to build up behind us, and eventually they overwhelm us. They kind of flood us. So think about what's in your wake, right? What have you left behind you haven't dealt with? So little by little, we'll chip away at those things. But we noticed the top 3. So figure out where your top 3 is. Is it something you can get done right away, or is it the most important thing? Those are kind of where I decide. Once you have your top 3 indicated, what I'm going to ask you to do next is I want you to flip the page over. And on the back of the page, or even on another page, what I would ask you to do is write down just those top 3 elements. And then you take the list with all the stuff on it and put it in the drawer. It's amazing how relieving it can be for you not to have to focus on everything all the time. When you only are focusing on 3 things, what it allows your brain to do is to kind of wrap itself around those 3 things and keep those in mind, keep those in front of you. Now, that list of 3 things, that doesn't get put in a drawer. That gets put right up in front of you. Put it on your desk. You can post it someplace, post it on your door before you go in and out, wherever you can put it. Now, if you notice too, I'm also talking about using paper or pen and paper, because to me, there's some value in being able to have something tangible that you can cross out, that you can make changes in or whatever, rather than doing it on the computer. There's something about the tactile actually writing out your list. But make that list, post it up somewhere, look at it, keep it in front of you, because that becomes your map, right? That's that map. The more you see it, the more real it becomes for you. So you got your page taken and with all the elements on it, that's been put away. You got your top 3 items that you're dealing with now. And I would say to you is as you start to complete things on that list, don't cross them off, don't erase them. What I want you to do is, just like I have here, put a line through them. That gives you a record of what you've accomplished. That gives you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a record of what you have done. And you may even decide that you want to keep, after you go through that list, is put that somewhere where you can refer back to it, to look at all the things you've accomplished that week. Or maybe even some things that you want to rethink about. So there's some value in just having that list that you've made, that you've completed, that you can go on now and kind of recapture some of the thoughts, from the week. And then the next one here is when you have completed the first 3, you can bring over another 3. You can also realistically, as you cross off one, is go to that sheet, figure out what's next, bring that over, so that you're just maintaining 3 at a time. So again, whether you're bringing all 3 over, bringing 1 at a time over as you complete something else, doesn't really matter. The idea here is you only want to focus on 3 things at times. It's kind of like how do you eat an elephant, 1 bite at a time. You try to eat the whole thing, you're going to choke. So we want to think about the idea here is that life very often gets to the point where we feel like we're choking because we can't deal with it all. I hope this has been worthwhile for you, that you've gotten some ideas here that may help you to balance out things a little bit better. I've got more videos coming up, so please tune in and be happy to really take on anything that you would like me to cover. I'm open to suggestions on topics that you'd like me to deal with. There's things I can do and things I can't, and I'll certainly let you know as you get in contact with me if it's something I can deal with. But be more than happy to discuss those here. But I really want to thank you for taking the time to be with me today. Here's my contact information. And just like everybody else, I'm on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and all the other forms of communication that we have today. But get back to me. See what you think about the information I provided. If you have questions, more than happy to answer them. I just want to be useful to you, because you are the ones doing the work out there, and I can only do the support of aspect of this just from here. And I thank you for your assistance. I thank you for all the work you do with the people that you make a difference in every day. And with that, I would say to you, thank you so much. Be well. Bye-bye.